You're listening to Achtung, Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to an impromptu edition, a Monday afternoon, more relaxed edition of Achtung Millwall. My name is Nick Hart. You're listening, of course, to the number one Millwall podcast. And joining me to review what was an excellent, in my opinion, away point on Saturday and to kind of mull over the Millwall scene generally is our show regulars, Mr. Michael Avery. How you doing, Michael?
Good afternoon, Nick. Good afternoon, listeners. Yeah, very good result of the weekend for us. Has left me quite positive. I'm normally the more positive ones on these pods, but I'm even more positive. That'll make you pessimists sick, won't it?
Well, I was half expecting Harry to be with us today, Michael, but I think he must be otherwise engaged. So I rely on Harry to bring a touch of kind of panic stroke realism to the conversations, because with that excellent away point at the Hawthorns, we are, in my opinion, it's the best chance we've had of playoff football since 2002. I mean, it's a kind of a different sense this season. If you compare it with that Neil Harris, was it 2017-18 season when we went close and fell away at the last, the kind of Titanic game against Fulham, obviously at the Den. But we rather had a sense of chasing it that season. Whereas this term so far, we've still got 7 games to go, so it's not a done deal yet, listeners. But it feels like we're slightly more in a driving seat. You know, it's a situation where it's us that can fall out of the driving seat rather than we're trying to get into it. If that makes any metaphorical sense to the listeners, Michael.
No, absolutely. And as you were saying that, I was actually going to sort of comment on that. That you know, the chased chasee has become the chased now, haven't we?
Yeah.
You know, we are quite comfortable in what we're in 5th now. We started down 6th. Some results really normally, and I said this the other week amongst us, and I've said it to a few people around. It always cheeses me off a bit with Millwall in the sense that, you know, when we win or we go on runs and do well and get good results, nothing really seems to happen. But then when we lose one, it all seems to go wrong. We drop out. I mean, if you think a while back to the Norwich game at home, was it the 3-2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was the first game we'd lost in quite a while. But that was the first time there was any real movement in those playoff places with Millwall. We ended up dropping out of the playoffs a little bit. This is the first time where actually, as I say, we didn't win, but results have ended up going our way for once. And I think it's quite nice now. That 3-point cushion, I remember after the Huddersfield game, I said that 3-point cushion was not really as soft a pillow to lay our head on as we thought it would have been, because obviously things to do with goal differences and everything like that. But now we've got, a 4-point gap between us and Norwich.
There's a 4-point spread to Norwich in 7th, at the moment. Obviously, we've played 39, so 7 games. They've played 39 too. 4 points behind. West Brom are now 9th, some way off I'll say some way, they're 1 point behind the 7th and 8th positions, Norwich and Coventry. I think what I really liked about Saturday's performance, which was a kind of a classic Gary Rowett away day grind in one sense, but there was a time and a place for that kind of approach, and that very much was the Hawthorns on Saturday. They came into the game, I suppose they're still now unbeaten in 12, I think. But I think the stat prior to the game was they'd got 10 wins from their last 11, and they're unbeaten in those 11. So, you know, it's a fair opponent that we're taking on there, and we really did make them look no big deal, Michael. I mean, I think I saw a statistic that said we had 4 shots on target to their 1, which is pretty, that's a testament to the team's approach and Gary Rowett's tactical approach, really. I know we've kind of ummed and ahed over Gary Rowett for a long while, but I think it's really starting to show now what he's doing, which is making the most of the squad that we have rather than what other clubs have, which, maybe superficially more talent, more pace, more whatever you want. But we're making the most of what we have, Michael, and I've got to take my hat off to him, because Saturday was a classic example of that, I thought.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is as well, I've always said my sort of line on this pod when it comes to Gary Rowett is always, we'll never go down with Gary Rowett. We'll never look over our shoulder with Gary Rowett. But my issue, I've always backed managers because at the end of the day, it's a hard job to do, no matter what club you're at. It's also a hard job to do at a club like Millwall because the fans let you know when they're not happy. Rightly so. If the fans aren't happy and something needs to change, they're vocal about it. But my issue with Rowett was always right. We never go down, but what we're trying to achieve, where are we trying to go, what we're trying
What
to
we're
do.
trying to create. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was always the possibility, of a kind of where we'd fall into a bit like a sort of Charlton trap where we'd always been mid-table in our league, probably doing better than we should be doing. But then when we sack our reliable manager because it's not taking us to the next level, we can end up dropping like a stone, similar to what happened with Charlton and Kirkby famously in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But I think under Rowett now, we're starting to see the fruits. He's obviously had a bit more budget than he has had previously and other managers have had. But I don't even think, Nick, it's just the budget because you'll have the sort of anti-Rowett brigade who still think Neil Harris should be marched back into the then hot seat, say that, Neil Harris would have been able to do it with a budget. But I don't think... I think you need to be a particular manager to get this group of players who, again, I've said in the nicest possible way, wouldn't make the top six of any other team and get them in the top six comfortably. So I think he's done a stellar job.
Yeah, I mean, he's knitting together players that are, I don't know, I mean, Zian Fleming perhaps apart, is obviously our creative, talent that we have in the side. But I think he's knitting together players that otherwise would be fairly described as journeymen, I suppose. I don't know. That might be a bit unfair on one or two of them. I mean, maybe George Saville might consider that an unfair description. But they're players that haven't really reached the heights and touched the stars. But collectively, we are more than the sum of our parts, and I probably even include Zian because I think as much as we all idolise Zian, maybe not for his basketball skills, from that little clip that we saw on YouTube the other day. Stand down, Chicago Bulls. You can move along here, mate. I think I wonder whether he would get into other teams sometimes. I mean, he has his great moments, but he does go quiet on us at times. So anyway, my point being that we're greater than the sum of our parts, which I think comes back to Gary Rowett's abilities as a manager. It feels quite strange to be praising him as a manager. We all got into a little bit of a mental loop, Michael, of knocking him all the time, haven't we? And I think it's coming as a bit of a I don't know. It's a revelation almost to start to praise the man.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I think with Rowett, it's an interesting one because he obviously came in after doing reasonably well at other clubs. I never really, as I've said to you before, I never use Stoke City as a gauge of how well managers do because that is just an utter shit show up there. So I don't think if you get sacked from Stoke, it's any blot on any CV. Or it won't
Birmingham
be if
is
I
as
was in
well,
charge.
really, isn't it? In a similar way,
Yeah.
Birmingham can be a madhouse.
Well, he got sacked from Birmingham when they was in the playoffs, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm not going to judge him on that. I think the thing is as well is that a lot of people thought, probably myself included, that he was using Mill to rebuild his career and then be on his way. But he's rebuilding his career and he's going up to the Premier League with Millwall. It may happen rather than go up to the Premier League and leave us behind. He might be taking us with him, and I think he is doing a good job. Like a few years back, a place like West Brom, you'd struggle to get anything there, let alone not them have beat you at all, especially with their resources. I know you can say it's a bit of a shambles behind the scenes there, but with their firepower and their players, they should have wiped the floor with us in both games on paper. They've not beat
In
us.
resource terms, yeah, financial muscle or whatever way you want to put it, they bring more to the table. We more than matched them. I mean, I think we were unlucky not to win it on Saturday. Personally, I don't know if the listeners out there would agree with that, but I thought we had the majority of the chances. It was a game of few chances. I remember there was one. I was a long way away from it, but I remember Bradshaw going with a header that went looped upwards over the bar in the first half, way down at the other end from where we were standing. That maybe on another day that heads on target. There's a few chances in the second half where on a different day maybe one of those goes in, and happy days. You're a goal ahead and in control of the game. Just didn't work quite that way. But they should be waltzing past us, Michael. In fact, they're not. I keep paying tribute to the squad and the effort and Gary Rowett because as much as we might all call for flamboyance at times. I mean, obviously the big one is when will Roman Esse be unleashed on the world, and will it be in the next few games or not? But I suppose there comes a point when it made me laugh on Saturday where Gary Rowett shuts up shop. Even if we're not shut already, then the shutters are kind of being locked with a padlock. When Hutchinson comes in, we go to the three-man defence, and
Yeah.
that's it. Nothing's going to get past us. That's the kind of realism of being a football manager, isn't it? At a certain point, you take what you've got and you move on, and that's what he does very, very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is as well with Rowett and Harry's managing at the moment. I mean, I know it sounds silly because this tends to be our football is as a game, but the only times I've noticed us sort of really sort of lose games is either when someone comes down and they just tactically completely outmaster us, like Fulham did last season.
Yeah, yeah,
You can argue even. I know they're shocking at the moment and too busy trying to do team building exercises. But again, QPR at the beginning of the season, I thought they were very good against us. Or when we have a really, really bad off day, like we did against Huddersfield the other week, we're not a team who loses through our own kind of like regular performances. What I'm trying to say is every game we go into, if things go to plan, we have got a good chance of winning a game.
yeah.
But like I say, compare
Agreed.
that to the likes of QPR at the moment. Every game they go into, they seem like they're going to lose because they're just
Well,
not good enough. But I
they're
think we're well beyond
spiralling,
that now.
aren't they? They're
Yeah,
spiraling out of control. I mean, these kind of bizarre, absolutely bizarre, almost Ian Holloway-esque South Sea Island team building things that he's doing gives you a little glimpse. I mean, we weren't far away from that under Holloway not so long ago. So the fact that we feel more like a normal football club is in itself, a major step forward. So life could be a lot worse when you look at how they're doing. But as far as Saturday's concerned, I mean, it was a defensive masterclass. I want to mention, if I may, Charlie Cresswell, because it's come out on the social media this morning. Michael and I are recording Monday lunchtime. That he's fractured his eye socket. He was down for a long while, almost on just before the final whistle blew Saturday. And there's a picture that came out this morning with his left eye, I think it is. That's it's not quite stitched, but they got something that looks like stitches holding the top and lower part of his eye, brow, and top of his cheek together. And it turns out he's got a fractured eye socket, Michael. I mean, that's the boy has really made his career, I think, this season for us at the Den. I mean, he came here to kind of gain experience. My gosh, he's gained experience this season, hasn't he? I've really liked the look of the boy and what bravery he shows as well.
yeah. And to be fair to him as well, I mean, I remember the first game of the season. I was saying about how great he was and brilliant he was, and him and Shackleton and how great they are going to be for us, etc. And then it sort of went a bit off the ball. I think it was about Sheffield United. He had a bit of a howler, didn't he, with that
He
dodgy
let
back
one get
pass.
away from him, didn't he? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
and then it was a little bit hot and cold. Is he good enough? Is he not good enough? Should we send him back? But he's really cemented that centre half position as his own, very similar to how Ballard did it last year
yeah.
at Millwall. I think it obviously, without trying to be too disrespectful to Sean Hutchinson, I think it helps when Hutchinson's been out injured for so long. Creswell obviously is just the natural pick. Otherwise, you'd argue should Hutch play in front of Creswell? I mean, a few months back when he was a bit hot and cold. But he's been excellent. I think he's been really, really good this season. He obviously loves the club. You saw those social media videos of him on was it the Elizabeth
Yeah,
line or the Underground, where he was
yeah.
joining in with the fans. He gets on with the fans. He every time he scores, he's always running over to like the Coldblow Lane or the Docker stand to really get the applause. I think if you ask him, he likes it, Danny, and he's putting his body on the line. And a lot of lone players don't do that, especially ones with
Absolutely.
especially ones with those sort of sense of grandeur that they could do it better somewhere else. But also, I'm just looking on Millwall's website now, Nick. Our favourite piece of Marmite of Vogelsheim has extended his stay at the Den.
Yes, he drew a contract extension, which I think was based on starts, on appearances, starting appearances. I don't mind that. I mean, there's this thing around about Vogelsammer that he's not good enough. I don't buy that. I think he clearly brings something, and given where we're sitting in the league table, I think you've got to give Gary Rowett credit enough to, if he's starting him, he's seeing something that he wants in the team. So I think to some extent, far be it from me ever to tell the Millwall support to get real, but you got to get real here, haven't you? I mean, he's a decent winger. He brings certain attributes on the left side. Good penalty taker, and the physical presence, and also he went up front towards the end of Saturday's game. I dare say the likes of Ryan Loftus will be quaking in their boots at the moment and foaming at the mouth with retorts back for us for praising Vogelsang, but that doesn't make me unhappy. Do you like Vogie, Michael? Are you a Vogie fan?
I'm still got splinters on my bum where I'm sitting on the fence too much with him.
He's on the fence.
I I don't see what everyone else is seeing and singing and dancing about at the moment. I'm not saying it's not there to be seen eventually. And again, we've always said Millwall fans, they appreciate hard work and effort, and he does do that. And there was the game the other week when he got a couple of assists playing alongside Zian Fleming. So obviously you put him alongside players of talent who know how to find him with certain passes. He looks okay, but I think some of the basic stuff needs work. As I said in the Sheffield United FA Cup game at home, for someone who's meant to be a striker, being that offside that many times in one game was a bit questionable. And also, I remember, I think it was the Huddersfield game, wasn't it, when we had that free kick on the left-hand side, which he tried to whip in the box, and it just went absolutely nowhere. So
Yeah.
I get what you mean. There are moments where he does look okay. He does work hard, as we've said. He's obviously got a good relationship with the fans. As it says there, he scored 3 times and proved numerous assists. Numerous is probably, they can't remember how many assists he's got. But he played 36 games, and he's also got the weird reputation of being a BFG, even though he's only about 5'10".
Logic rarely plays a part in football chant lyrics from the terraces. I've been doing a bit of the old I keep reading, listeners, how to make your podcast more popular, how to reach a bigger market. And one of the things they always say is to interact with your audience on social media. So I put a couple of polls out this morning, Michael, which one of which was we touched on already. We'll come back to Charlie Cresswell in a moment, but I posed a question for the Twitterati out there, Michael, in the attacking midfield three. I'm going to presume that Honeyman and Fleming kind of picked themselves for the game against Luton on Good Friday. But I was remarkably unimpressed with Duncan Watmore's performance on Saturday. I don't like to slag players, but it just wasn't at the races at all on Saturday. So anyway, I've put a poll online, and you can still join in with it if you're motivated. You won't get on the podcast anymore, but are you going to start in that left-sided attacking position amongst the attacking three? So the split, Michael, least favourite is Duncan Watmore, and I think that does reflect a fairly disappointing showing on Saturday. Duncan Watmore at the moment is on 13%, 13%. Then Oliver Burke, who seems to have adopted a role of impact sub, as they say in the USA, in American sports. He's an impact substitution. He's on 18%. Then the wild card, the 33% of the 88 votes that have voted on it, not many people have voted so far, but 33% of those 88 want Roman Esse to start. I think starting Roman on against Luton might be a big ask. I'd hope to see him, Michael. But the favourite at the moment, just in front of Roman Esse, is the BFG, Andreas Vogelsang, with 36%. Say start him, and I think he probably will start against Luton on Good Friday. I think the people will get what they just about want there.
That shows how shit our other options are, doesn't it? No, I'm joking. I jest.
Well, I think Watmore and Burke aren't starters, are they? I think that neither really. I mean, both seem to have impressed the most, and I get all the counter arguments about them coming into the club and fitness, blah blah blah. But they both seem to make the most of themselves coming off the bench with about 20 to go or 15 to go or something. So as a starter, probably he's only going to be Vogie. And I don't know about Esse. I'd love to see it, but I just wonder whether he's a bit too raw at the moment to be starting against their promotion rivals, Luton, on Good Friday, three days away.
Possibly. Esse's very much in that kind of Tyler Bury role, isn't he? Where you've got some people who are screaming for him to start and others who want him just on the bench for the last 10, 20 minutes. I think I'm in the latter camp like you. I think it's a big ask him starting. And I think also as well, I remember Neil Harris said it when we was in League One, didn't he, before we went up to the Championship, that when you've got your sort of young players, if they're a little bit inexperienced, you can't really start them that much in high profile games in the Championship and above, unless they are like ridiculously hugely talented footballers who, you know, you
Yeah,
can see from like 10
yeah,
years old how good they are.
yeah.
So that sort of counters the argument with like Billy Mitchell and Danny McNamara, but these boys obviously have bags of talent. So no, I wouldn't start SA personally. Burke, I'm literally just counting down till the end of the season till he can go back, because he is just. I mean,
You're not
he's
impressed.
not. He's not really done
He,
anything, has he? Let's be honest. It
I
was
think
like
he's a
last
nearly
season.
play. He nearly combined well with Fleming on a move in the second half at the Hawthorns. I mean, nearly's not good enough, listeners. I do take that point, but I suppose he has pace. Whether he's used correctly or whether that pace goes anywhere, yeah, I don't know. Open question, I suppose. I mean, neither have exactly set the world on fire. I was hoping for more out of Watmore. I thought he might be a bit more of a, I don't know, Millwall player. He didn't show it. He looked like me if I was wandering around on the pitch like I've been, named unexpectedly by Gary Rowett to start on the left side. I would wander around like Duncan Watmore did out there, looking slightly lost and wanting to be back on the terraces, complaining about somebody else. So yeah, Vogie almost certainly is the 36% choice of my poll. Very, very scientifically done. And just to follow it up, just to try and reinforce this new dialogue based approach that I'm going for on the podcast now, Michael. I've asked a question as to, obviously with Cresswell with a fractured eye socket. would the people start him, or would they wearing a mask, clearly a Tony Craig style Phantom of the Opera mask? Would they start him, or would they have Sean Hutchinson? I mean, for me, there's only one choice really. That's Hutchie. But 81 votes. This is a good lesson for all you youngsters out there that people regard you in the working world as disposable assets. They don't care about you as an individual. You are a unit to be used because 81%, 58% of the 81 votes, Michael, would start Cressy wearing a mask on Good Friday with a fractured eye socket.
Yeah. Well, to be
Harsh.
fair, yeah, I think you'd actually rather either of those two with missing limbs over George Evans.
Well, you can pull in Murray Wallace, I suppose. I mean, I wouldn't do that above Sean Hutchinson, only if Hutch was injured. I think we've got to regard Cresswell as injured probably for Friday and Monday at least. He might be able to take the field wearing a mask after that if Gary Rowett sees it. But I think probably with an experienced captain, Sean Hutchinson, it'd be a bit of a snub not for him to start in this situation. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and the thing is as well, this is where football's a funny old game as well because, I mean, if you fractured your eye socket, I'll sit at a desk and I'll go, I ain't coming in today, I'll fracture my eye socket.
I'd be looking for 6 months off.
Yeah.
I'll be getting my union rep to get me some time out.
Yeah.
Not take the field.
I've got a doctor's note. I can't type. I mean, it's one of those. If medically he is clear to play with a mask on, then yeah, you'd give him a run out, and that's no disrespect to Hutch, but he's in good form, and and those type of things again, without trying to be too silly, they're the sort of things that sort of fire you up as well, don't they? Like I've been smashed in the face, but I'm still ready to keep going, kind of thing. So yeah, I'll try Creswell.
There are people like that out there. I've never been that kind of person, but yeah, there are people
No, me neither. Yeah, me neither. I bruised like a peach.
There are people that get fired up by having a fractured eye socket and then taking the field. I mean, good luck to Charlie Cresswell. I mean, in all seriousness, it's a major injury. I'll be amazed if we see him Friday and Monday. I think at least a week and a bit out. Maybe I don't know enough. I'm not medically qualified to know about the wherewithals of wearing a mask to protect him. I think you see it going on, but I think given that we do have reinforcements there, then give him enough time to get over that. I think he's a young boy and he deserves it. It'd probably kill him to miss out on what is looking like a terrific playoff run. And there's still a lot of football to be played potentially. There's at least 7 league games, and who knows if we get any playoff football. So I think nurture the boy would be my feeling. Caution taking precedence. I was interested to see Billy Mitchell and Mason Bennett getting some run out time. There's an under-21 game going on. I think it might be on now, Michael, versus Burnley. So both of the boys are getting some game time, which is good also for the running, because Mason might make a difference going forwards, and certainly to have Billy back is going to be a good thing too for midfield.
Yeah, I think the thing is as well, Nick, considering the in the nicest way, considering the way Mason Bennett left the field when he got injured, it does.
Yeah,
It
I
sort
thought it was a
of,
season over. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it does. It does. It is good to see that he's obviously getting some kind of run, and Mitchell as well. Because I think even though we have been playing well, I think we have missed him in the midfield big time. Personally, I think him and what's his name, Saville together is only going to make the
Savile.
midfield stronger. And I think as well, I said it for the Huddersfield game. It could be a subconscious coincidence from Millwall, but I found that since Mitchell's been out of the team, we are relying a lot more on sort of long balls over the top and balls out wide, rather than playing
Yeah,
through the middle as much as when Mitchell is there. That
agreed.
could be a tactic that they've actually meant to employ, or they're like, well, there's no one to give the ball to in the midfield now who can sort of control and pull the strings. But we'll see. We'll see when he comes back.
I can't let Saturday pass without mentioning the pantomime that was Jed Wallace. Listeners, if you listen to my live game stream of consciousness, you would have heard the reaction of the Millwall crowd. It's a strange business, Michael, and obviously Jed decided for his own, I believe, understandable familial reasons. He wanted to make the most of his career, which is a short thing for a football. And he's decided at the time of last summertime that West Brom offered a better chance of a route towards the Premier League. As it's turned out, it's not done yet, so we mustn't tempt fate. But it's looking at Millwall was the right choice. If he wanted a shot at the big time. But anyway, we'll see how it all pans out. I think maybe there's a bit of a pantomime quality to some of it. I think people love to have someone to hate, and there he is, the spurned ex-lover. It's like having your girlfriend dump you when you're 15, isn't it? You kind of live with it for a long time. So
Well,
yeah,
all I can say is, Nick, it's like when your girlfriend dumps you for a better looking fella in a nicer car, but then you notice their car on the old shoulder of the M25 while you're still going by in your Fiat Punto.
the younger listeners will not know what I'm talking about, and you might not even know what I'm talking about, Michael. But there was a punk song called "Jilted John" by Jilted John, where his girlfriend Julie leaves him and goes off with Gordon, who's better looking and trendy. And then they finish up laughing at Jilted John whilst he goes to the fish and chip shop. A great sound. But that is very much how it feels at times. I don't know what people would do without someone to hate at Millwall. At the moment, Jed Wallace fulfills the role once taken by Ian Holloway. Now it's Jed Wallace. There we are. Personally, I don't really care about him. And he's gone. He ain't going to come back. Harry posed an interesting question online the other day about Jed, actually. If we got promoted, big if suddenly we were looking to reinforce our squad, would we want him back? I don't know that he'd be good enough, Michael. If we're talking about Premier League quality, I think if we did get promoted, big if, I'd hope we'd be looking for something a bit better as far as we can afford. And it might be foreign, it might be players that, we haven't, maybe don't spring to mind, but I'd be looking for something a little bit up. I'd be upgrading, wouldn't you, if we got promoted?
Oh, 100%. I always said a little while back when I think it was when Villa was interested. Was it Villa who was interested in him a few years back, and and people saying would he go, would he not? And I'm a fan of Jed Wallace as a player, especially when he was with us. Obviously, recently, like you say, Nick, he's moved on, and we move on as well. But I never really thought he was like a really good Premier League team quality player. You could maybe argue, someone like a Southampton would take a punt on him there, or someone towards the bottom who are struggling or look like they're going down could take a punt on him. But
Maybe.
yeah, but I'm a little bit similar to you in the sense that if we do go up and we should be looking sort of wider afield as to who we could buy and sort of with the resources we've got. However, sure, on the other foot, if those players aren't available or we can't afford them, let's be honest, Jed Wallace is probably better than the vast majority of the players we've got now. So if he was there as an option, I'd perhaps consider it at the very least.
We'll cross that bridge when it comes. We'll leave the Jed Wallace pantomime there, listeners. But I thought that was an interesting question. Well done, H, for posing it,
It was
because it
probably
made
it was
me
probably
think that.
Harry's way. It was probably Harry's way of starting an argument with someone and then call him a see you next Tuesday for saying that he's a good winger, and then telling us just how much of a dickhead that Paulo 1734921 is because he's tweeting it back. Good old Harry.
Dear old H. Penalty shout. I've got some notes I've made. You're a referee on the quiet, Michael Avery. You had penalty shouts. There was a couple of controversies on Saturday where West Brom claimed a penalty. Too far for me to take a view, and I haven't actually seen the YouTube clips of the highlights. I haven't really looked at any of the footage. I don't know if it would be included in it, but anyway, the Jake Cooper was in my mind as to why he can be rugby tackled, rugby league tackled, rugby union tackled, and every other variation, American football tackled at corners, and we don't get a penalty. What do you think goes through the minds of referees? Is there a sense that he's a big boy and he can give it and take, and he's got to take it? I kind of get that to some extent, but when you have players physically hanging on to anyone, let's take Jake as an example, but anyone, it strikes me an offence is being committed under the rules of the game, and nothing seems to happen. I don't know what the understanding is amongst referees as to what you give and what you don't give, and why you give it and why you don't give it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. In truth, there's some that I've seen that I thought has that not been given, and there's others that I've seen where I'm thinking I don't know what we're appealing for in truth. But I mean, it's
This is
always
where players go over lightly. Would that be what you're thinking of there, where players are trying to work it?
There's a little bit
Yeah.
of contact, and there is, but I think it's the age-old argument, Nick. I saw a thing. I think it was Keith Hackett was the other day put on Twitter. They were saying about the time the ball was in the player's goalkeeper's hands from a goal kick, and why is that not penalised more? And basically, he said in the tweet, I think it was him. So if it's not him, and he's obviously an avid listener, then I apologise. But he said something like, "What happened was the referees have made the mistake in where they've let it go for so long, they now can no longer really pull it up, even though it's a law of the game. You know, it's like when
Right.
the goalkeepers catch a ball and then throw themselves on the floor. You think we don't
Yeah.
need to do that, but again, because that's how they've got around the law to a degree. But I think it goes back to the argument, Nick, that yes, the Jake Cooper, some of the majority of the Jake Cooper ones are bad, but how many penalties would you give a game if you gave them?
Well, potentially a lot, but then I suppose the counter argument. I mean, I get the consistency argument because that's always a thing that's always mentioned by managers across the divisions, whatever level. They want referees to be consistent in their decision making. And I suppose once you've started not giving something, then to be consistent, you have to carry on not giving it. It does lead to some ludicrous situations. So I think my thought would be you'd only have to give one or two penalties before everyone will start to cotton on that actually this offence is now being seen as an offence. I don't know whether FIFA, the lawmaking IFAB, would actually take an interest in this, because I think it's a bit of a blight on the game that players are being manhandled with no punishment meted out of any kind. I don't know if it wasn't in. They did an upgrade of the rules for next season, didn't they? The other day, I don't think it was looked at or mentioned in the ones that I picked up, and I could be wrong. But no, I mean it's frustrating. I mean, certainly on Saturday there was a situation where I thought, well, they must be with a shout penalty, but as ever, not given. I think also someone made a point online, Michael, that if we know we're not going to get penalties given, particularly against Jake, because of his height and the fact that he stands out so much, why are we not working on other routines that try and take that into account? Because two men must then take out this 6'5", 6'6" giant. It needs two men to basically obstruct him when he's starting to get running. So why are we not trying to work on routines that take that into account, if that makes sense? On Saturday, we had a couple of fairly namby-pamby efforts where they were trying to volley from the edge of the penalty area from a kind of a corner back, if you like, rather than the traditional lump into the 6-yard box. Didn't really work, and probably needs a lot more work for it to remotely have a chance of going in the net. But I suppose that's the logical next step, isn't it? If if you're not going to get something one way, you have to try and think of other ways to get it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, you're right. And even if, like we say, like it's like the old tactic when you see forwards running off of players, to make the space and to widen the pitch up a bit. If Jake Cooper, that's going to happen to him, why don't you just put him sort of like on the edge of the box, bring 2 defenders out with him, and then there's 2 defenders left to be involved in any aerial challenges. Yeah, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Achtung, Millwall.
Pundit is the football trivia game. Every sale using the code LIONS at checkout now gives a whopping 40% discount, plus a £10 donation to the Lions Food Hub. Visit punditgames.co.uk to order your copy. punditgames.co.uk, code LIONS. Welcome back to the show. Michael, there's one or two other bits that we've picked up on from the Millwall website and around the scene. I was interested to see, this is just the facts of the modern game. I don't even know if it's newsworthy, but the Millwall amongst the lower end of the championship spectrum in terms of paying out for agency fees for transfer fees, agents that coordinate these deals. I think we're in the bottom 5 or bottom 6 of the division, not quite the bottom. I think that was Reading, who I think are under various restrictions, I believe, of what they can and can't do. And then at the other end, you've got the big boys, the Burnleys and the Sheffield Uniteds paying out millions to agents. But we are who we are. It was a story on the on the main website. Just a fact of life for us, really, isn't it? I don't even know if I want to be at the top of that particular league table, agent fees league table.
Well, let's not beat around the bush. It's probably because we can't afford them. Rather than,
well, yeah, I don't know if I want to afford them.
No. I was going to say, I think the agent world of in football is just absolutely reeks, doesn't it? And a lot of the time you're buying players. You're looking at sometimes like more than half the fees going on agents and their fees, especially with some of the big players. With Neymar. When he went to PSG, loads of other players who had big money moves. A little while later, they end up either in court looking at the cases or FIFA has a look because of the agent fees and the illegal payments to X and the illegal payment to Y. And yeah, I just think it absolutely reeks, to be honest with you, agents in football. I know to a degree players feel like they need them because, they obviously manage their off-the-field work. And I get that. So I'm not exactly blaming players for this. But I think the culture they just cause trouble as well. We had it with Fred on the dinner. We've had it with other players who have gone on and done other things because their agent has advised this and their agent advised that. So yeah, I'm glad we're nowhere near it when it comes to that league table. In truth,
I suppose it's one of these things where you, as a man of some maturity, Michael, it's easy to forget that often these are young boys, comparatively not far short of being children in some cases, just out of their childhood years, and they're 17, 18, and they're earning fortunes. So they often they may not feel they've got the skill sets required to manage their own affairs. It would hurt my sense of pride to be have a kind of like a Nick Hart version of Colonel Tom Parker managing my affairs. I think I'd do it myself, Yeah. But these are kids, aren't they? So I suppose it's that necessary evil sense of negotiating with clubs, and financial deals, blah blah blah. You don't want to make a mistake, so yeah, necessary evil. But anyway, if it brings any cheer to anyone's heart, it brings a bit of cheer to my heart. We're amongst the lower end of the spectrum in the championship on that front. Interesting thing I was looking at the website before Michael and I spoke today, listeners. They've now got a worldwide membership set up where people from different parts of the world, Europe, the Americas, Asia, can join a kind of like a membership club for
Sheppy.
I don't know what that Sheppy. But I think I don't know what it gives you. Does it give you money off the TV prices? I don't know if it gives you ticket prices or any kind of fast track into anything. I don't really know.
Let's have a look. We get a limited edition welcome booklet. Very nice. 20% off Millwall TV Plus annual subscription. Because they can watch the 3 o'clocks, can't they?
They can. Yeah. We can't.
Exclusive
We don't.
international. exclusive international line store promotions. You'll get out of stock in probably another language. Six,
Keine Stocken.
yeah, yeah,
Boden
no,
nicht.
yeah. Loads of shits and items in Stockholm.
It was the last game we played at home. It was at Huddersfield. It was, wasn't it? When I was
Last
walking out,
season, yeah.
I came past the Lions shop. I was walking down Bolina Road, going home. The queue to get into the Lions Club shop, it's incredible, Michael.
Yeah.
People queuing up to get into it. I mean, I don't know what's in there. The last time I looked in there, it looked like like I've been cleared out. One of these panic buy situations where people want to buy toilet paper and then clear out all the toilet paper, from
Yeah.
Asda or something. It had that empty shelf look in there, but the
No,
queue
that's
was
just
was a
that's just normal.
mile long.
That's just normal empty shelf in the club shop.
Incredible.
And
Anyway, you
also,
get a percentage off.
hang on. Oh, look, free access to Harry's bar on match day. Sod that. No,
It's
I'd
free
rather keep.
anyway. I suppose you're allowed in because you're not allowed in if you're not a member, are you? I suppose.
Yeah,
So
invitation to an
uh,
open training session at the Den. That's good. You become an associate member of the Mill Supporters Club. So there you are.
there we are.
Every
Anyway,
fan.
it's a worldwide. If you're listening from beyond the Sceptred Isle, you can join the Lions Wall-wide membership scheme. Have a look on the millfc.co.uk website. We mentioned the other day on our group chat, Michael, the threat, as some would see it, to the TV. In fact, you just mentioned the 3 p.m. Blackout. At the moment, television rules in this country mean that for UK and I don't know about Republic of Ireland, but certainly UK viewers, you can't tune into your team if they play a 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon kickoff. We've got a bidding war going on for coverage of the championship. It seems to be a highly sought after product, Michael, and a dynamic new. I think they're in boxing. DAZN, DAZN, DAZN are looking to get involved, and I think they're all looking one way or the other. I don't know even if the clubs are looking to break the traditional 3 p.m. Live TV blackout rule. I think it will go at something. There are so many easy ways around it now with virtual private networks and so on. You can get round it one way and the other. And I think football generally wants to tap into that market rather than see it frittered away to those that are circumventing the system. I think it will have an impact on the game, but I think it will happen. Personally, how do you see it, Michael? 3 p.m. blackout.
I think it will happen, but they have to subsidise those lower league clubs because they will not
Should be
last
part
5
of the
minutes.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
they will not last 5 minutes with this window gone. With the 3 p.m. blackout, I think I think it will happen. The lower leagues need to be subsidised. That just goes without saying because they're not going to last 5 minutes if it's not subsidised because the money they get from revenues etc. is and not just ticket sales, other bits and pieces, beers and merchandise etc. But let's be brutally honest. It was proved sort of during sort of COVID, if you will, and even before that the bigger teams and the Premier League teams. I think it was proven, wasn't it? They can survive without a member of the fan
On
base
TV
in the
income
stands.
alone. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if you can get a deal that pretty much guarantees that for all clubs, then I don't see any issue why it doesn't get brought in because that's the only reason why the 3 p.m. window was brought in the first place. So if you've got something that can make up for the lost revenue, then yeah, bring it in. It may lead to less people going to games, but then you've also got your traditionalists, Nick. I mean, if I was at home and I had the choice
Mm.
of watching it on TV or in the stands, I'd still go to games. I think that 3 p.m. blackout could be for the likes of the people who can't necessarily get to the away games. But even then, how much do fans rely on away tickets?
Yeah. I everyone will have a view on this, and I'd be interested, actually, listeners, to see what people think about the 3 p.m. blackout. I think sometimes you've got to go with reality, and the reality is that you can get round it reasonably easily. I mean, I am no internet expert at all, listeners. I've come from a different age, but if I can get round it, well, it's pretty easy to get round. So there's the reality that people are watching their team live at 3 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon for the most part. There's all sorts of sticks that you plug into your computer that give you access to foreign coverage, stuff like that. It can be done. So I would prefer to see the game in its widest sense, and I include the non-league game, I include the lower National League and the Leagues 2, 1 and Championship in that category, that we have to reinforce the beauty of the English game, which is its depth. And if that can get money to clubs that need it, you and me were at Sheppey the other day, Isla Sheppey. There's a good, well-run club. You need to be able to protect clubs like that, the smaller, the backbone of the game in the country, often built around the concept of there being a bar, a clubhouse bar, often that will show games, television games, and will generate money over the takings over the bar counter. So there are ways to do both, and I really, really hope that any deal that the games authorities come up with keeps an eye on reinforcement. So a non-league club, we've been to Sheppey, I've been to Canvey. I remember Canvey are advertising, get into the bar at for 12:30, watch the early game on their club TVs, have a beer, go outside for the 3 p.m. kickoff, which was Canvey versus X, can't remember who it was now. Then come back in again to the bar for the 5:30 game, which would be, that works quite nicely. So you need to think about how you might do things like that. There's got to be ways around it. I don't believe it will be quite the blight that people fear if it's done correctly, Michael. That's what I hope happens. It might mean non-league games kicking off at different times, approaches like that. I don't know, but I think one thing's for sure: it won't last. This 3 p.m. thing won't last because so many are getting around it at the moment, and there's so much fiddle to be had out of it. So, I think it's right that the football industry, gets the money that it's due by legal paying customers. I just hope it's done correctly in a way that protects the lower league game for the reasons that we've touched on there.
100%.
We'll see. We shall see, listeners. That's a story that's unfolding at the moment. Lastly, really, I just want to close. Michael's on his lunch hour, and I don't want to overstretch it, but just a good news story that we are in the top 10, Michael, of sustainable football clubs. Apparently, we're quite high up in the league table with sustainability. That's going to please a lot of people, isn't it?
Yes. Long live falafel and hummus.
I don't know what's involved in the sustainable football club. I suppose if your electric bill isn't too high, I don't know really. But
I think it's to do
apparently
with
we're in the top 10.
I think it's to do with like the travel arrangements of the club and all that kind of stuff. So I think probably it'll even go down to like it could be I'm guessing things like where your food comes from and how much emissions are sent or spent with the like transporting your goods to and from the stadium everywhere like that. So well done, Millwall. Well done. Made the
Well
top
done,
10.
Millwall.
Yeah.
I've just found the table.
Extinction Rebellion will be happy.
Forest Green Rovers top the table. We're tucked in behind the Milton Keynes Dons and Cambridge United. Charlton are higher than us in this very rare table where Charlton are in a higher place than Millwall, but in the sustainability stakes, they're just ahead of us at the moment. Anyway, well done, the club. That's a nice little story to close us out. Michael, really appreciate your time today, mate. You're at work. I'm going to let you go. Big thank you to Michael Avery.
Thank you very much. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed, listeners.
A big thank you to you too, dear listeners, for tuning into this impromptu Monday afternoon review of West Bromwich Albion 0-0. Huge Easter weekend to come. Luton Town at the Den. Don't forget, it's a 12:30 kickoff. I was walking around the streets of East London, happily thinking it was a 3 o'clock kickoff, and then good job I checked because I always showed up there just at the final whistle on Friday. It's a 12:30 kickoff. I think it's a TV game, Michael. I believe it's on Sky. Big showdown. Anyway, there we are. Big thank you, Michael Avery. Thank you two listeners. Until the next edition, it's Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Achtung, Millwall.